Welcome to the deep dive.
Oh.
Okay, imagine this world, right? Where you've got ancient artifacts bumping up against modern-day spies.
Yeah, and art dealers who are actually, deep undercover operatives.
And it all somehow comes together in this one dusty city in Paraguay. It becomes this weird focal point for all these secret missions crashing into each other.
It's wild. We've got this stack of source materials here, and they lay out this incredibly tangled situation. It all centers on finding this legendary object, the Memphis Sphinx.
And the cast of characters.
Yeah.
Wow. Intelligence agents from different groups, maybe not even working together.
Definitely not always working together. Then you have these high-end art dealers, some German criminals mixed in, and figures who are just, well, really mysterious. And they all end up in Ciudad del Este.
So our mission for this deep dive is to try and untangle all these threads. We want to get a handle on what's driving these people.
Right, and figure out what key information these sources actually give us. I mean, why are all these different groups, different agencies, different backgrounds, all converging on this one city for this one artifact?
What secrets do these documents really show us about how their lives are all linked up and, frankly, the incredibly dangerous games they're playing? Okay, let's dive in. Let's unpack this.
Okay, so maybe the place to start is Susanna Royale Toussi. Suzi. She looks like an art dealer on the surface, but the sources make it really clear she's operating way beyond that.
It says she works strictly off the books for a General Buck Grant. He seems tied to this outfit called the SDF, Special Development Force, maybe?
That's the name mentioned, yeah. And that off-the-books part is key.
Exactly. It's classic intelligence, right? Gives Grant total deniability. Suzi can move in circles, do things, well, things that official agents just couldn't.
Especially when you've got other players like the CIA and DIA involved, which they are here. She needs that flexibility.
And her mission? It's got layers. She's supposed to get the Memphis Sphinx back?
Which, by the way, is the same thing the DIA's Moonrise project is after. Grant, her boss, seems pretty skeptical about them, though.
Yeah, the sources quote him mentioning their Psy guys and sort of scoffing. Like, why don't they just teleport the thing back if they think it was teleported away?
Right. Grant's view is much simpler. It was just stolen. But for Suzi, it's not just the job. There's this intense personal motivation.
The rescue mission. Trying to save girls from Eastern Europe. Tied to someone she lost.
Exactly. It adds this whole other layer of personal stakes to what's already incredibly dangerous work. Makes her motivations really complex.
And the object itself, the Memphis Sphinx, the legends around it or something else.
Oh, yeah. The sources connect it to Theban pharaohs, then these slave kings in Delhi centuries later. Even the Nazis are rumored to have had it.
Physically, they describe it quite precisely. Black granite, maybe 5 by 7 inches.
With a gold death mask, a golden lapis lazuli mane, and these clear quartz crystal eyes. Very specific.
And worth millions, obviously. The kind of thing people would kill for.
The sources are very clear on that. People would kill for it. And that value, whether it's real money or the supposed powers, immortality, control, whatever the legends say.
But that's what draws everyone in, right? The danger, the agencies, the criminals. Doesn't even matter if the powers are real. The idea is enough.
Precisely. Now, while Suzi's on her mission, the sources bring in another major player, Dax Killian.
Former Special Forces.
Yeah.
But he's not working for Grant or the SDF on this one.
No, totally separate track. He's on a private contract, hired by a Colonel Hansen at the Pentagon, someone from his old military days.
Okay, so Dax is also after the Sphinx. But why?
His goal is completely different. He needs to retrieve it and deliver it to a German guy, Eric Warner, over in Brazil.
And in return?
Warner is supposed to give Dax intel, information about a sleeper cell operating in Texas.
Whoa. Okay, so the Sphinx isn't just a treasure. It's a bargaining chip. A piece in this completely separate intelligence game involving, like, actual national security threats.
Exactly. It connects these seemingly disparate plots. And here's where it gets really interesting with Dax and Suzi.
They know each other before Ciudad del Este.
The sources say he's known of her for about 6 months, saw her in Denver, and get this, he knows a lot about her. Her resume, birth certificate, even her shoe size.
That's specific, almost obsessive.
It reads that way. And when he sees her arrive at the gallery in Ciudad del Este, his internal reaction is intense. Like the sources describe him thinking she's straight out of his dreams, that she lit him up like a flare.
Okay, so he's seriously affected by her. That's got to complicate things when their missions collide.
Massively. And that collision happens in Ciudad del Este. The city itself sounds, well, Pretty grim based on the descriptions.
Yeah, that Mercado Cantina, slummiest bar in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And the Galleria Viejo, where Susie's going. Dumpiest, dirtiest, most squalid.
Not exactly a high-class art district. So Susie walks into this place with a guy named Jimmy Ruiz.
And Ruiz is nervous. The sources say Susie basically strong-armed him into coming.
Yeah, she's using some leverage against him involving a U.S. Treasury agent under indictment. So Ruiz is caught, basically. He has to help her.
And inside the gallery, it's not just them. Who else is there?
Other key players drawn by the Sphinx. There's Levi Asher, a big-name art dealer from New York. He's apparently been chasing the Sphinx for years.
Okay, established interest.
And then there's Esteban Ponce, described as dangerous idiot. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. One of those guys who would kill for it.
Exactly. And maybe desperate, too. The sources mention he might be trying to save his father, who has terminal cancer. So you've got all these volatile elements crammed into one place.
A powder keg, like you said.
Yeah.
And then the police show up.
Right. But Dax notices it's only a few officers. Makes him think it's not a real raid.
More like a shakedown, looking for a bribe.
That's his suspicion. Meanwhile, inside, Susie's trying to check if the Sphinx is authentic. She's got this RFID scanner.
But it's not working properly.
No, she's just getting these weird blinks, like an intermittent signal. Not the steady lock she needs, except for one brief moment.
What happens?
It gets a GPS lock, but only when she's near this set of stairs. She's baffled, thinks the scanner's broken or something. Bad timing.
Just as things are heating up outside, chaos erupts.
Yeah, sounds of crashing junk, people shouting. And Dax, who's upstairs, sees Jimmy Ruiz.
The nervous guy.
Yeah, him. He sees Ruiz scrambling across the roof, escaping. And crucially, Ruiz is carrying a messenger bag Dax is sure he didn't have when he came in.
Ah. So Ruiz likely grabbed the real Sphinx.
Looks that way. Then Dax runs into Susie upstairs. Things get physical. He realizes she's armed.
She doesn't want to leave. She has a plan.
That's what she tells him. But Dax isn't having it. He basically decides he has to get her out of there, pulls her out through a window.
And they end up in the alley. Her mission inside is blown.
Totally. But about that scanner problem she had, Dax figures it out later, based on what he finds in the gallery's basement. He realizes the room where Susie was, the chapel room, was built directly over something else.
Which was?
A Faraday cage structure. Basically a mesh designed to block electronic signals.
Ah. So that's why the scanner wasn't working. The cage was blocking the RFID signal.
Exactly, except
near the stairs.
Yeah.
Where there must have been a gap.
Precisely. An opening in the cage let the signal through just long enough for that GPS lock. So it wasn't a malfunction. It was deliberate counter-surveillance. Someone knew how to hide things electronically.
That's a fascinating detail. Shows the level of sophistication involved here.
It really does. So after all this chaos, Susie gets back to her hotel, the Grand Chaco. Sounds much nicer than the gallery area.
A real contrast. First-class place.
Yeah.
Then a Ruiz turns up there.
Yeah, Jimmy Ruiz shows up. But get this. He brings a Sphinx that Susie immediately knows is fake.
Wow. What's his game? Desperation? Deceit?
Hard to say from the sources, maybe both, but things go from bad to worse, fast.
How so?
Susie finds Ruiz dead, murdered, in her hotel room.
Oh, man. Brutal.
Very. Killed professionally, the sources say. Suppressed weapon. Clean, silent. And because it's her room.
She's instantly the number one suspect.
Exactly. The police are all over it. Then Dax arrives.
How does he get past the police?
Uses a press pass. The Daily Inquirer. Another hint about his methods, right?
Right.
He gets through security.
And finds Susie. Must have been intense.
These sources describe it as emotional. And he's straight with her. Tells her he wasn't worried about the artifact. He was worried about her.
Their connection is getting deeper, clearly, even amidst this mess.
Definitely. Now, while this is happening, remember Creed?
The SDF guy, sent by Dylan Hart, Grant's number 2.
Right. He shows up in town looking for Susie and specifically for her scanner. He gets to the Grand Chaco, hears about the murder, finds out Susie's the main suspect.
Oh, he starts digging.
He tracks down Levi Asher, the art dealer, at a place called El Caribe. The sources describe Creed really putting the pressure on. Asher's terrified, drunk.
And Creed leans on him. Classic intel gathering.
Totally. And it works. Asher spills some crucial info. What does he say?
He says Susie left the gallery with a man named Danny Kane.
Dax's alias.
Bingo. But then Asher says this other guy came looking for her. A big, bad, very bad man.
Okay, a new threat.
And, most importantly, Asher gives Creed a location. Costa del Rey. Up the Paraná River. That's where this dangerous guy supposedly took his bodyguard, Gervais, and that's where the Sphinx is now believed to be.
Costa del Rey.
Yeah.
A specific place. Creed now has a target.
Meanwhile, Susie's not just waiting around, she decides to gather her own intel.
How?
She arranges to meet Levi Asher herself back at El Caribe, pretends she wants to make a deal.
Smart. What does Asher tell her?
He confirms what he told Creed, more or less. Mentions getting zapped by the man at Beringer's, another location mentioned, who was asking about her. Confirms the Sphinx definitely went up the river.
But then Dax shows up.
Yeah, Dax intervenes again, using the Danny Kane alias. Gets Suzi out of there before things with Asher get too weird or dangerous. Their missions are just completely tangled now.
But the danger isn't over. What happens next?
It escalates again. Suzi gets snatched. Kidnapped right out of Dax's hotel room while he's in the bathroom for a minute.
Oh no. And they took her gear.
Her fanny pack, yeah. Gun, phone, everything. Dax tries to track her phone, but finds out Costa del Rey isn't on any map. It's got to be a private estate or a code name.
He's stuck until
a new character arrives at his door. Shoko.
Describe her.
The sources paint her as terrifyingly efficient, machine-like, lethal, an Asian woman, and she's with Eric Warner.
The German Dax was supposed to deliver the Sphinx to.
The very same. Shoko's there to summon Dax to meet Warner, and she drops 2 bombshells.
Here are they.
1, she reveals that a man named Conroy Farrell has Suzi's phone.
Conroy Farrell. That must be the big bad guy Asher mentioned.
Almost certainly. And 2, Shoko gives Dax the real location of Costa del Rey and a deadline. All the pieces are now pointing towards this Conroy Farrell at Costa del Rey.
Okay, let's shift focus to Conroy Farrell. The sources take us there, to Costa del Rey. What do they tell us about him?
They hint at a really dark, traumatic past, something involving JT Chronopoulos and, well, a crucifixion in the jungle. Horrifying stuff.
And he needs medication. Suggests lasting damage.
Yeah, physical or psychological, maybe both. Whatever happened was severe. And his motivation now seems crystal clear.
Justice. Or revenge.
Revenge, primarily. Against Eric Warner. He blames Warner and his psychopharmaceutical industry for causing terrible suffering. And its personal Conroy seems reliant on meds made by that same industry.
So his plan? Use the Sphinx.
Exactly. Use it as bait. Lure Warner to Costa del Rey for a final confrontation. He wants to deliver his own kind of justice.
And Suzi wakes up right in the middle of this. Captive.
Right. And her reaction is interesting. Initially, seeing Conroy, she feels safe, which is weird, but that feeling doesn't last.
She realizes the danger. He's calm, though.
Very calm, according to the sources. An unusual, almost comforting presence, bizarrely. But he does eventually admit to her that kidnapping her was a mistake. He wasn't after her.
Does he give her anything back?
Surprisingly, yes. He gives her back her scanner, not the whole fanny pack, just the scanner.
And she uses it?
Immediately. Confirms the Sphinx signal is strong. It's definitely there at Costa del Rey.
Does she interact with the Sphinx itself?
She does. The sources describe her feeling its history, its age. She even takes out one of the crystal eyes.
And sees something unusual.
Flecks inside the quartz that seem to move like tiny orbits. And her breath actually vaporizes on the cold stone, even though it's not cold outside.
So hints of something genuinely strange about the artifact.
Yeah.
Beyond just legend or an RFID chip.
The sources definitely imply that possibility, yeah. Leaves it ambiguous. Then, a really key moment happens. Conroy gets a call on Suzi's phone.
Who is it?
It's Dylan Hart, Buck Grant's number 2 at SDF.
And what's the call about?
Conroy confirms to Dylan that Dylan and another SDF guy, Hawkins, have snatched the girl. But wait.
Not Suzi. A different girl.
Exactly. It reveals another parallel SDF mission was happening simultaneously. They were looking for someone else entirely.
Wow. Layers upon layers.
And then Conroy gives Dylan this incredibly intense warning. Don't you dare harm Suzi. He sounds fiercely protective of her, even though he's her captor. Shows how complex his character is.
So everything is set for a massive collision at Costa del Rey.
Absolutely. All the players converge. You've got Warner and his men arriving, Vargas maybe leading them.
The SDF team is there. Dylan, Hawkins, Creed, Zach.
Dax is closing in. Conroy is there with Suzi held captive. And Shoko is present too.
And it just erupts.
Total chaos. The sources describe Shoko going into action on the dock. Unbelievable speed, using knives.
Taking out Roner's men.
Yeah, neutralizing them, cutting the boat ropes. She commandeers a gunboat. Seems like she wants the Sphinx for herself now, planning to escape upriver with it.
And Suzi, where is she during this firefight?
Caught in the middle. And Shoko actually grabs her again inside the house during the fighting.
So Susie's captured again. By Shoko this time.
Yes, it's just relentless action, multiple factions fighting each other.
Dax sees Shoko escaping with the Sphinx and Suzi.
He must see Shoko escaping with the Sphinx, at least. He immediately gives chase up the Tambo River in a go-fast boat.
Leading to the final confrontation. Where does it happen?
In a field somewhere along the river, Shoko is described as frantic. She's trying to perform some kind of ritual.
A ritual. With what?
With the Sphinx.
What?
And Eric Warner's body and blood. It sounds like she's aiming for resurrection or immortality, something like that.
That's intense. Is she coherent?
Barely. The sources say she's wailing, asking, which one, which one? It's desperate, crazed.
And Dax arrives during this.
He calls out for Suzi. She hears him, responds. He rushes to her.
Does Suzi get away from Shoko?
Yes. She struggles, manages to break free just as Dax reaches them. He pulls her away from the scene, Shoko wailing, dead bodies everywhere. The rescue happens right there.
And the Sphinx.
Suzi claims it after everything she went through. The sources say she declares it's hers now. Can't really argue with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other loose ends there?
Dax finds an envelope in Warner's pocket, another small mystery. And as they're leaving, they see another car driving away, turning off onto a side road. Just one more unexplained detail.
So what does this all mean? Where do things stand right after this climax?
Well, immediately after, the sources show Dax and Suzi just exhausted. But there's this clear shared vulnerability, a definite connection formed through the ordeal.
Ken Creed, the SDF guy.
He reports back to Dylan, tells him what went down at the Gran Chaco, the intel he got from Asher about Costa del Rey. Pieces are being reported up the chain.
Which takes us back to Washington, to Buck, Grant, and Dylan.
Exactly. The sources shift perspective there. Grant and Dylan are putting the pieces together. Conroy Farrell's revenge mission, the Sphinx recovery mission, how they got so tangled.
And they suspect something bigger is going on.
Yes, that's the crucial takeaway. They suspect a higher connection. Someone pulling strings behind the scenes, someone potentially responsible for turning JT into Conroy and for stealing the Sphinx from that secure lab in the first place.
So finding that higher connection becomes the new primary objective.
That's what they're determined to uncover. It's the big unanswered question hanging over everything.
What about Suzi? What's next for her?
Her bosses at the DIA Moonrise Project remember them. They give her a new mission. She's off to Nepal.
Chasing another artifact?
Apparently. Something called the Pizza of Abd Hassan, rumored to grant eternal life and riches. Sounds familiar, right? Echoes of the Sphinx legends.
History repeating itself, maybe. Does she go along?
No. And this is significant. The sources state she chooses Dax as her backup for this mission.
So that connection, that trust built in Paraguay, it's solidifying. They're a team now, basically.
Seems that way. And the sources give us one final, quite poignant moment between them in Nepal.
What happens?
It's quiet. They're drinking tea at dawn. And Dax shares this personal rule he has. He tells her, if you ever find yourself lying in bed with a woman in Nepal drinking hot tea at dawn, you should marry the woman.
Wow. Okay, there's quite a statement after everything they've been through.
It really lands, yeah. So when you step back from all the details we've unpacked here, it's just an incredible web.
Seriously complex. Multiple agencies, private operators, deeply personal revenge plots, all swirling around this one ancient object.
You've got double crosses, murders, kidnappings, this explosive showdown, all driven by such different things.
The motivations are fascinating when you list them out. Duty, sure. Justice, for Conroy at least, but also raw greed, the desperation to save someone, and this wild hope for immortality.
And you see how these clashing agendas just ignite when they hit a pressure cooker like Ciudad del Este and then Costa del Rey.
We definitely uncovered some cool details digging through these sources, like the Faraday cage that wasn't magic, it was tech, explaining the scanner glitch.
Right, specific tradecraft. And those hints about the Sphinx itself, the moving flex, the coldness, leave you wondering if there was something more to it than just metal and stone. The sources kind of leave that door open.
And that huge question mark hanging over it all. Who is this higher connection pulling the strings? Behind Conroy, behind the theft, that's a big one left unresolved.
It really is. Which maybe leads to a final thought, connecting back to the Sphinx itself.
Yeah.
Consider how powerful the idea, the legend of the Sphinx was. Forget whether it had actual powers for a second. The belief in its power, the stories told about it for centuries.
That's what drove everyone, wasn't it? To kill, to betray, to risk everything.
Exactly. The legend itself became this incredible force, maybe more potent than any magic it might have held. So, a question for you to think about.
Go on.
What does that tell you about the nature of information? About the stories we chase, the stories we choose to believe, and the extraordinary, sometimes terrifying lengths those beliefs can push people to?
It's definitely something to mull over.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the time we have for this deep dive.